I straightened my tie, studying my reflection in the lobby's glass doors. Inside, Marcus Peterson was waiting for his interview, probably rehearsing the impressive speech he'd give about his MBA and years of strategic consulting. He had no idea he was about to meet me, James Wilson, the college dropout he mocked a decade ago. The memory was still fresh. Emma's college reunion, 2013. Marcus holding court among the alumni, his Harvard Business School diploma practically radiating from his designer suit. "So what do you do, James?" He'd asked, not bothering to hide his smirk when I explained I was starting a tech company in my garage. "Cute hobby," he'd said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "But real business requires education. Connections. Things you clearly lack." He turned to Emma, his concern obviously fake. "Are you sure about this one? You could do so much better." Emma had squeezed my hand, her quiet confidence in me never wavering. "Just watch," she'd said. Now, 10 years later, I was about to watch Marcus interview for a junior position at Nextech Innovations, the company I'd built from that garage startup into a billion-dollar enterprise. "Ready, Mr. Wilson?" My HR director, Deanna, asked as I entered through the side door. Almost. I took off my suit jacket and rolled up my sleeves. "Let's make him wait another 10 minutes. Diana smiled, understanding perfectly. She'd been with me since the early days, when we worked out of that same garage Marcus had sneered at. She knew the whole story. "His resume is impressive," she said, handing me his file. "On paper, anyway." I glanced at the glossy document. Harvard MBA, McKinsey Consulting, all the right buzzwords. How was the preliminary interview? Condescending. He kept name-dropping his connections, suggesting he should be interviewing for a director position at least. Perfect. This was going to be interesting. At exactly 2:10 p.m., 10 minutes late, I walked into the interview room. Marcus sat there in an expensive suit, checking his Rolex. He didn't recognize me at first. 10 years, a better haircut, and success can change a person's appearance considerably. "Mr. Peterson," I said, sitting down. "Sorry to keep you waiting. I'm James Wilson, founder and CEO of Nextech." The moment of recognition was priceless. His eyes widened, his practiced smile faltering as he connected the dots. The college dropout he'd mocked was now interviewing him for an entry-level position. "James, it's been a while," he managed, his confidence evaporating. "Has it? Seems like yesterday you were explaining how real business requires the right connections." I opened his file. "Speaking of which, let's talk about your qualifications." For the next hour, I methodically dismantled every pretentious claim on his resume. His strategic consulting turned out to be PowerPoint presentations. His team leadership meant managing 2 interns. His impressive title at his last job masked the fact that he'd been laid off for underperformance. "I have to say, Marcus, I'm disappointed," I said finally. "Your resume promised someone who understands business. But I'm not seeing any real accomplishments, any actual value created." He shifted uncomfortably. "My Harvard MBA means you can pass tests and network. But can you build something? Can you solve real problems? Can you do what I did, start in a garage with nothing but an idea and turn it into this?" I gestured to the gleaming office around us. I've changed since college," he tried. "I understand now that success comes in many forms." "Do you? Because your interview answers suggest you still think business is about credentials and connections rather than creating actual value." I stood up, walking to the window that overlooked the city. Nextech's logo shone from several buildings, a visible sign of what hard work and real innovation could achieve. "Let me tell you what happened after that reunion," I said. "While you were collecting degrees, I was solving problems. While you were networking, I was building. Every time, Someone like you said I couldn't succeed without the right pedigree. I worked harder to prove them wrong. Turning back to him, I continued. Emma believed in me. She saw past the lack of degrees to what really matters: determination, innovation, the willingness to learn from failure. Marcus looked down at his expensive shoes. I was wrong about you, he admitted quietly. Yes, you were. But this interview isn't about revenge. I sat back down. It's about whether you've learned anything real in the past decade. So tell me, Marcus, what can you actually do? Not what degrees you have or who you know. What value can you create? For the first time, his facade cracked completely. I don't know, he said. I've spent so long trying to look successful that I never focused on actually being successful. Finally, an honest answer. I closed his file. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm offering you a job, but not the one you applied for. He looked up, surprised. You'll start in product development, learning our technology from the ground up. No fancy title, no corner office. You'll work alongside people who never went to college but know more about innovation than any MBA program could teach. Your Harvard degree won't matter. Only your willingness to learn and contribute will. Why would you give me that chance? He asked. After how I treated you. Because 10 years ago, someone believed in me when others didn't. Now it's my turn to give someone else that chance. I stood up. But understand this, you'll have to earn every step forward. No shortcuts, no trading on connections. Just honest work and real results. Marcus stood slowly, his expensive suit suddenly looking like a costume he outgrown. When can I start? Monday, 8 a.m. sharp. Wear something you can work in. You'll be spending your first month in the development lab. After he left, Emma called. She'd been waiting to hear how it went. Did you get your revenge? She asked, amusement in her voice. Better, I replied. I might have found a way to turn another cynic into a believer. Just like I did with you. You never thought I was a failure, I reminded her. Because I saw what others missed. The determination in your eyes, the way you solved problems others ignored. She paused. Think Marcus has that potential. We'll see. Either way, he learned something valuable today. What's that? That success isn't about where you started or what degrees you have. It's about what you build, what value you create, and how many people you help along the way. That evening, I walked through Nextech's development lab. The night shift was hard at work. Engineers and programmers focused on solving tomorrow's problems. None of them had Harvard MBAs. Many, like me, had learned through doing rather than studying. On Monday, Marcus would join them, starting his real education. Maybe he'd wash out, unable to abandon his preconceptions about success. Or maybe, just maybe, he'd learn what I'd learned, that true achievement comes from creating something meaningful, not from collecting credentials. Looking at my reflection in the lab's window, I barely recognized the uncertain young man Marcus had mocked a decade ago. Success had changed me, but not in the ways he'd assumed it would. I hadn't become arrogant or exclusive. Instead, I'd learned to value substance over style, results over resumes, and most importantly, to give others the same chance Emma had given me. Mr. Wilson, one of the engineers called out, "We've got something you should see." I smiled, rolling up my sleeves as I walked over. Another problem to solve, another opportunity to build something valuable. This was what real business was about, not networking events or fancy degrees, but the daily work of creating something worthwhile. Monday would be interesting. Marcus would either learn this lesson or fade away like so many others who thought success was about appearances rather than achievement. Either way, I had a company to run and value to create. The best revenge isn't humiliation. It's proving that success comes from who you are, not where you studied. And sometimes, the greatest victory is giving someone else the chance to learn that lesson for themselves. Monday morning arrived with a crisp autumn chill. I watched through my office window as Marcus pulled into the parking lot in his luxury car, now looking oddly out of place among the practical vehicles our developers drove. He was wearing what he probably thought was casual clothing, designer jeans, and a cashmere sweater that cost more than most people's weekly salary. Time to begin his education, Emma said from the doorway. She'd come in early to witness this moment, her role as head of innovation giving her the perfect excuse. Marcus's first surprise came at security. Instead of being escorted to a cushy office, he was directed to the development lab in the basement. His second surprise was waiting there, me, in jeans and a company t-shirt, setting up workstations with our lead developer, Sarah. 8 a.m. sharp, I noted, checking my watch. Good start. Ready to work? He nodded, though his eyes betrayed his discomfort with the environment. The lab was purposefully utilitarian. Whiteboards covered in complex diagrams, computers running test scenarios, half-assembled prototypes scattered across workbenches. First lesson, I said, handing him a company laptop. Here, everyone starts at the beginning. That includes learning our coding standards. Coding? His voice cracked slightly. I thought, given my background. Your background is exactly why you need to start here, Emma interrupted, entering the lab. You can't manage what you don't understand. Sarah, our brilliant lead developer who had dropped out of college to join us in the early days, pulled up a chair. Let's see how quick you learn. We'll start with basic Python. For the next 4 hours, Marcus struggled through introductory programming concepts. His Harvard MBA offered no help with understanding loops and variables. His McKinsey experience meant nothing when facing a blank code editor. During lunch break, I found him sitting alone in the cafeteria, staring at his untouched sandwich. Harder than you expected? I asked, sitting down with my own lunch. I've never felt so incompetent, he admitted. Even the interns know more than I do. Good. That feeling. That's where real learning begins. I opened my laptop, showing him Nextech's first product prototype. See this? It was terrible. Crashed constantly, looked awful. But it solved a real problem, and we improved it every day. How did you know it would work? He asked. That you weren't wasting your time. I didn't. But Emma believed in the vision, and more importantly, I believed in learning from failure. I closed the laptop. Your problem, Marcus, isn't lack of intelligence. It's that you've never allowed yourself to be bad at something long enough to become good at it. He considered this, picking at his sandwich. At Harvard, failure wasn't an option. Here, failure is mandatory. It's how we learn. The only real failure is pretending you know everything already. That afternoon, Sarah reported that Marcus had managed to write his first functioning piece of code, a simple calculator program. It wasn't impressive by any technical standard, but it was honest work, something he built himself. He's frustrated, Sarah said, but he's trying. That's more than I expected. Week 1 passed in a blur of basic coding lessons, system architecture discussions, and increasingly humbling moments for Marcus. His expensive clothes disappeared, replaced by practical workwear. His luxury car started parking farther from the entrance, as if trying to hide. By Friday, I called him into my office for his first review. How are you feeling? I asked, noting the dark circles under his eyes. Overwhelmed, he admitted. Everything I thought I knew about business seems superficial now. Explain. He gestured in frustration. At McKinsey, we make presentations about digital transformation and technical innovation, but I never understood what those words really meant. Now I'm seeing how hard it is to create something that actually works. And I think I get why you started me here. You can't lead what you don't understand. I nodded, pulling up our company's original business plan on my screen. Look at this. My first attempt at a formal business plan. By MBA standards, It's terrible. He studied it, a small smile forming. The formatting alone would have gotten you failed at Harvard. But, it's focused on the actual product, on solving real problems. There's no jargon, no fancy charts, just clear ideas about making something useful. Second week, I announced, you'll shadow our customer support team. Because another thing they don't teach at Harvard is how to listen to the people who actually use your product. To my surprise, Marcus didn't protest. Something was changing in him, the polished veneer cracking to reveal someone actually willing to learn. That evening, Emma found me still in my office, reviewing Marcus's progress reports. He's not who I expected, she said, perching on my desk like she used to in the garage days. There might be hope for him. He reminds me of someone, I replied. Another arrogant young man who had to learn everything the hard way. She laughed. You were never that bad. Uncertain, maybe. Rough around the edges, but never arrogant. No, just terrified of failing. Until someone taught me that failure is part of the journey. Emma's faith in me had been the constant through all the early struggles. When our first product launch failed, she helped me analyze what went wrong. When competitors with more resources tried to crush us, she helped me find innovative ways around them. Speaking of journeys, she said, the team's quarterly innovation challenge is next week. Think he's ready. The innovation challenge was our way of keeping creativity alive as we grew. Every employee, regardless of position, had to present one new idea for improving our products or processes. Let's find out, I replied. Nothing teaches humility like presenting to people who actually build things for a living. The next week, Marcus immersed himself in customer support. He handled complaints, talked through technical issues, and experienced firsthand how real people use our products. Each evening, I found him still at his desk, studying user feedback reports. You know, Sarah commented, watching him work late one night, he's actually listening. Not just pretending to listen like most suits do. The transformation became evident during his Innovation Challenge presentation. Gone was the slick consulting speak. Instead, he presented a simple idea based on actual customer feedback, a modification to our user interface that would help less technical users. It's not revolutionary, he admitted to the team, but it solves a real problem I heard about repeatedly in support calls. The developers, initially skeptical, began asking technical questions. To everyone's surprise, Marcus could answer them. He'd done his homework, learning enough coding to understand the implications of his proposal. Not bad, Emma said afterward. He identified a real issue and proposed a practical solution. No buzzwords, no fancy graphics, just substance. Ready for phase 3? I asked. She smiled, knowing what I had in mind. The startup incubator. Nextex's incubator was where we developed new ideas, many from employees who wanted to solve problems they had encountered. It was also where I spent most of my time, helping nurture the next generation of innovations. Time to show him what real entrepreneurship looks like, I said. Not the Harvard case study version, but the messy, real-world process of building something from nothing. Marcus had come seeking a job, expecting to trade on his credentials. Instead, he was getting an education in what really matters in business, understanding your tools, listening to your users, and creating genuine value. The arrogant MBA who'd mocked me at that reunion was gradually being replaced by someone who might, just might, become a real builder of things. The startup incubator occupied the entire 5th floor of Nextex building, an open space filled with whiteboards, prototype stations, and small teams working on various projects. This was where we nurtured new ideas, where failure was celebrated as a learning opportunity, and where Marcus would face his biggest challenge yet. Welcome to where the magic happens, I said, leading him through the space one Monday morning. No corner offices here. No hierarchies, just problems to solve and ideas to build. Marcus looked around, taking in the controlled chaos. One team was testing a new interface design. Another group was debugging a prototype. In the corner, two developers were having an intense discussion over a whiteboard covered in diagrams. "What exactly will I be doing here?" he asked. "Remember that UI improvement you proposed? You're going to build it. Not delegate it, not create a PowerPoint about it. Actually build it." His face paled slightly. "But I've only been coding for 3 weeks." "Then you'll need help, won't you?" I gestured to a small workspace. "That's your area. You have 6 weeks to deliver a working prototype. Find people who know what you don't. Learn what you need to learn. Make it happen." 6 weeks. He looked panicked. At McKinsey, we'd spend that long just planning the project timeline. "Welcome to real innovation," Emma said, joining us. "Where done is better than perfect, and actual results matter more than perfect plans." Over the next few days, I watched Marcus struggle with his new reality. His first instinct was to create elaborate project plans and documentation. Sarah, passing by his workspace, couldn't help but comment. "You know," she said, pointing to his complex timeline chart, "you could have written the first module in the time it took to make that pretty diagram." Slowly, painfully, Marcus began to adapt. He started asking for help, admitting what he didn't know instead of trying to hide it. He spent hours with the development team, learning how to translate his ideas into working code. 2 weeks in, I found him at his desk late one night, surrounded by empty energy drink cans, debugging his code. "Stuck?" I asked. He ran his hands through his disheveled hair. "Everything I try breaks something else. How do you deal with this constant failure?" "You're asking the wrong question," I replied. "Failure isn't the problem. It's the process. Each bug you fix teaches you something new. At Harvard, they taught us to avoid failure, to plan everything perfectly before acting. And how's that working out in the real world?" He laughed tiredly. Point taken. "You know, I used to think I was hot stuff with my MBA and consulting experience. Now I'm being schooled by developers half my age." "Good. That means you're finally learning something valuable." The transformation continued. Marcus's expensive clothes gathered dust in his closet as he adopted the developer's uniform of jeans and t-shirts. His polished consulting presentation style gave way to authentic discussions about technical challenges. 4 weeks into the project, during a team review, something remarkable happened. One of the junior developers pointed out a fundamental flaw in Marcus's approach to the UI problem. The old Marcus would have defended his position, citing his experience and credentials. Instead, he listened, asked questions, and then said something that shocked everyone. "You're right. I was wrong. Help me fix it." After the meeting, Emma pulled me aside. "Did you see that? He's actually becoming one of them." "Not just becoming one of them," I corrected. "He's becoming himself. Maybe for the first time." The final 2 weeks of the project were intense. Marcus practically lived in the incubator, working alongside the development team, learning and adapting as they went. His prototype wasn't perfect, but it was real, something actual users could test and provide feedback on. On presentation day, Marcus stood before the entire company, demo ready. Gone was the slick consultant with rehearsed buzzwords. In his place stood someone who had built something with his own hands. "This isn't what I originally planned," he began honestly. "The first version was over-engineered and missed the point. Thanks to feedback from the team and actual users, we simplified it. Let me show you what we built." The demo wasn't flawless. There were bugs, but when users tested it, they could immediately see how it solved their problems. The developers nodded approvingly. The code wasn't elegant, but it worked. After the presentation, I called Marcus into my office. 6 weeks ago, I said, "You came here expecting a normal job. Instead, you got an education," he finished. "A real one, not just letters after my name. And he looked out the window at the city skyline. I understand now what you were trying to teach me. Success isn't about credentials or connections. It's about creating actual value. About being humble enough to learn and brave enough to fail. Congratulations, I said. You've earned a real job here. As what? That's up to you. You've proven you can learn, adapt, and create. Choose where you want to go next. Marcus thought for a moment. The incubator. I want to help other projects. Not as a manager, as part of the team. I've got a lot more to learn. Emma, who'd been quietly listening, smiled. From Harvard MBA to startup builder. Quite a journey. A necessary one, Marcus replied. You know, I used to look down on people without fancy degrees. Now I realize they were the ones really building the future while I was just talking about it. That evening, as the office quieted, I found Marcus still at his desk, helping a junior developer debug some code. 10 years ago, I said, "You mocked me for starting in the garage. Now look at you." He smiled sheepishly. I was an idiot. No, you were just uninformed. Like I was before Emma believed in me. Sometimes people just need a chance to discover what they're really capable of. Thank you, he said seriously, for not just rejecting me, for showing me a better way. I left him there, still working, still learning. The expensive car in the parking lot now had a NextEx developer sticker on it. The designer clothes had been replaced by a genuine engineer's wardrobe. But more importantly, the arrogant MBA had been replaced by someone who understood what real value means. Sometimes the best revenge isn't proving someone wrong, it's helping them become right. 1 year after Marcus's transformation, I stood at the podium during NextEx's annual innovation conference. The audience was filled with employees, investors, and industry leaders. In the front row, Emma smiled knowingly. She knew what was coming. Success has many definitions, I began. A decade ago, I thought it meant proving critics wrong. Today, I want to tell you about a different kind of success. I gestured to the side of the stage where Marcus waited. Gone was any trace of the arrogant Harvard MBA. He wore our standard developer hoodie, his laptop covered in coding stickers, his expression focused yet humble. A year ago, someone who once mocked startups and garage entrepreneurs joined our team. Today, he leads our most innovative project to date. Marcus, show them what real transformation looks like. Marcus took the stage, not with PowerPoint slides or business jargon, but with live code and working prototypes. He demonstrated the AI-assisted learning platform he developed, a system that helped new developers learn coding through practical, real-world projects. This started with my own journey, he explained. Learning that real innovation doesn't come from degrees or credentials, but from understanding problems and building solutions. The platform had already helped dozens of new employees transition into tech roles, regardless of their backgrounds. It was Marcus's way of paying forward the chance he'd been given. After the presentation, during the reception, I overheard him talking to a group of MBA students who had attended the conference. But how do we get hired without the right connections? One asked. Wrong question, Marcus replied. Stop thinking about getting hired. Start thinking about what you can build, what problems you can solve. The rest follows naturally. Emma joined me, watching the scene. Remember when he used to be the one asking those questions? Now he's the one giving real answers, I nodded. Speaking of which, I clinked my glass for attention. The room quieted. Today isn't just about innovation, I announced. It's about recognizing growth, which is why I'm naming Marcus Peterson as our new Director of Developer Education. Marcus looked stunned. It was the first he'd heard of it. Not because of his Harvard MBA, I continued, but because he's proven something vital, that true leadership comes from understanding the work, not just managing it. Later, in my office, Marcus finally found his voice. I don't know what to say. Then let me say it, I replied. 10 years ago, you represented everything wrong with business culture. The belief that credentials matter more than capability, that status matters more than substance. He nodded, accepting the criticism. But you did something rare, I continued. When given the chance to learn, you embraced it. When faced with your own limitations, you worked to overcome them. That's what we need in leaders. I had a good teacher, he said. Several, actually. He looked through the office window at the development team working below. They all taught me something valuable. And now you'll teach others, Emma added, entering with a bottle of champagne. Full circle. As we celebrated, I thought about success and revenge. 10 years ago, I dreamed of proving Marcus wrong. Instead, I'd helped him become right, and in doing so, proved something more important. To transformation, Marcus raised his glass. And to garage startups. To real value, Emma added. To all of it, I concluded. The failures that teach us, the challenges that shape us, and the people who believe in us even when we don't believe in ourselves. The next morning, Marcus was back at his desk, helping a former marketing executive learn their first lines of code. The expensive car was long gone, replaced by a practical hybrid. The designer suits were donated, replaced by the uniform of a builder, someone who creates rather than just talks. Success, I realize, isn't about proving critics wrong. It's about proving that anyone can become right, given the chance to learn, fail, and grow. And somewhere in Detroit, another garage startup was probably being mocked by someone with the right credentials but the wrong attitude. Maybe someday they'd end up here too, learning what Marcus learned, that real success isn't about where you started or what degrees you hold. It's about what you build, who you help, and how many people you lift up along the way. That's the best revenge of all, turning critics into creators, one humbling line of code at a time.